जय चैन रमन सर। जय चंद्र कपिल जी।
जय जिनेन्द्र जी।
जय जिनेन्द्र सौरभ सर। जय जिनेन्द्र महेंद्र जी।
जय जिनेन्द्र कपिल जी।
Can we do the prayer while we are waiting, Mahendra sir?
Yeah. Sure. We can do that. Yeah. मंगलमय मंगलकर वीतरागवेन्द्र नामो चाहि जादे पै हरहंतादिमः करि मंगल करि महा कंदकरण कोकाश जादे मिले समाज सब पावै निज पतरा। जय जिनेन्द्र।
Jai Jinendra. Thank you.
So we will start from Vyavaharabhasi Mukhyadesh. Give me a moment, I have some issues.
Device disconnected.
So until now, it was just his conclusion. Now we're going to be talking about his activity based on his conclusion. So
Okay.
page number 206, Keval Nishchaya Bhas.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think the Vyavahara Bhas start from 213. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the PDF difference. There is a difference. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So he's trying to explain everything that goes as a false pretext in the Vyavahar Bhas as Vyavahara Bhas as well as Nishchaya Bhas. So until now we were talking about, or he was discussing about what this Nishchaya Bhasi Jiva was thinking and what his approach is. Today he is going to deal with his practice as well. So whatever he practices under the influence of Nishchaya Bhas.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll wait for 5 minutes and
Yeah.
we can get going.
As a receiver was as a receiver in my complications and as a sender in complications.
It will be more interesting and beneficial if we sort of imagine ourselves being Nishchaya Bhasi, understanding what Nishchaya Bhas is, and then sort of portraying or imagining how we would be practicing the Nishchaya Bhas. How would we be adopting those false understandings? And that way we can see the direction coming to us in sort of self-correction. So that would help us to understand what the Panditji is trying to tell us, I suppose.
Okay.
Okay, let's get started
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Everybody else will join.
Yeah.
So we are on page number 206, Mokshamarga Prakasak. The topic we're going to be dealing with today is Nishayabhasi ke Avlambi Jeev ki Pravrutti, the practice and activity of this Jeev who is under the influence of Nishayabhas. So we'll have to set a tone for it. I would say that if we can imagine that, let's say that we want to imagine we are in a city or in a place which is being talked about as being a very cold place in winter. It gathers snow, and you can feel the coolness or the chill factor of that snow when you are there. But you have decided to go, or we have decided to go into that city in the peak of the summer when there is no snowfall. We have understood that this city is supposed to be full of snow all the time. And even though in the summertime we go there and we are trying to imagine that we are feeling the chillness of the cold when there is nothing there, there is no snow there. So the same way, this Nishayabhasi Jeev is making a definitive context that he is Siddha Jeev. He is like a Siddha. He does not require to go on any further understanding. He does not need to do any more evaluation or scripture reading, swadhyaya, anything like that, to confirm to himself that he is Siddha Jeev. So now, under that pretext and under that wrong understanding, he is trying to practice. The practice that he's proposing to himself is what is being dealt here. So the first line it says, उस अब उस केवल निश्चयावलंबी जीव की प्रवृत्ति बतलाते हैं. What I might suggest, Mahendran sir, if it's possible, I will read a paragraph in Hindi and you can read the same in English, and then we can bring up the hidden message out of it if that's convenient.
Give me a second.
Do
Let
you
me.
Yeah.
Let
Do
me
you
look
have
at
the English text there?
Yeah, we have. Give me a moment. Let me open it
Sure,
up.
sure.
Yeah, you continue. Let me try to find it
Sure.
because I have only Tamil and English, Tamil and Hindi. Let me try
Okay.
to find the English one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You proceed, please, for now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the paragraph runs like this. अब उसी केवल निश्चयावलंबी जीव की प्रवृत्ति बतलाते हैं. एक शुद्धात्मा को जानने से ज्ञानी हो जाते हैं. अन्य कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए. ऐसा जानकर कभी एकांत में बैठकर ध्यान मुद्रा धारण करके मैं सर्व कर्मोपाधि रहित सिद्ध समान आत्मा हूँ इत्यादि विचार से संतुष्ट होता है. परंतु यह विशेषण किस प्रकार संभव है ऐसा विचार नहीं है, अथवा अचल अखंड अनुपम आदि विशेषण द्वारा आत्मा को ध्याता है. सॉरी. सो यह विशेषण अन्य द्रव्यों में भी संभवित है, तथा यह विशेषण किस अपेक्षा से है सो विचार नहीं है, तथा कदाचित सोते बैठते जिस तिस अवस्था में ऐसा विचार रखकर अपने को ज्ञानी मानता है. Have you come across the English one yet, Manan sir?
Not yet, not yet. I
Not
will
yet,
inform
not
you
yet.
once. I'm downloading now. Yeah, give me.
Sure, sure. So what he is trying to say here is this Nishchayavlambi Jeev, he considers that he is like a Siddh. So he's heard it in the Shastras, he's heard it from the Munis, he's heard it from the learned scholars that he is like a Siddha. Upon listening to this, upon understanding what is being told, he decides that he is a Siddha Jeev. To realize his Siddha state, he wants to be in the meditative pose. So he accepts this meditative pose, and in this meditation, he keeps revising the same statement. He keeps revising on the meditation that I am the Siddha. I am like a Siddha Bhagwan. I have got no karmic package. I am not bonded by karmas. I am free from karmas. Now, thinking like this, which is what even Muni Bhagwan is also expected to be contemplating like this. But this person is only contemplating. He is not understanding the context of that contemplation. He is satisfied on his contemplation. It is like a child who is not knowing how chocolate tastes. He is given a piece of maybe a sugar coated uh, pill, and he is told that this is a chocolate, eat it and enjoy it like a chocolate. He will consume that without understanding that what he is being uh, considering as chocolate is not chocolate really. So in the same way, this jiva is also contemplating that he is free from karmas. He is like a Siddha Bhagavan, but he is not going beyond that contemplation of experiencing. He just stays happy with that or contented with that contemplation itself. So he is not contemplating how would I become a Siddha? How would I become free from karmas? And that is where the flaw initiates itself. Also, he considers that he's heard from the scholars that this Atma or Jiva is of achal nature, which means that it's stable and it's steadfast. It is akhand, which means that it is non-divisible, it's undivided. Anupam, which means that it cannot be described. There is nothing of a similar stature or nature that can be used to describe it. So he is meditating on these features of Jiva or Atma without understanding that these features are also applicable to other dravyas in this universe. So without applying that uh, Bhed Vigyan or the differential point of view, he is not going to come to the right conclusion. He is not even trying to do that, but he stays contented with what he is understood, what he has listened to, and he wants to follow it without further discretion. This way, sometimes he is sometimes he even in his while he is sleeping or while he is sitting idly, he will keep contemplating that I am not uh, packed with karmas. I am Siddha Bhagwan. So I have got nothing else to do. So without having that realization, he just wants to stay in that imaginary, dreamy world where he considers himself Siddha Bhagwan. So what can go wrong here is that because of this, his mithyatva factor has not been tackled. When his mithyatva has not been tackled, the possibility of him going to samyakva is pretty much negligent or not possible. So in that case, even though he may spend rest of his life contemplating that he is Siddha Bhagwan, he is not reaching anywhere. देन ही सेज तथा ज्ञानी के आश्रव बंध नहीं है, ऐसा आगम में कहा है। इसीलिए कदाचित विषय कषाय रूप होता है, वहां बंध होने का भय नहीं है। स्वच्छंद हुआ राग आदि रूप प्रवर्ता है। सो ही heard from some discourses that jnanis don't bind karmas, they don't have to worry about ashravas. And through those discourses, he concludes that if he is a jnani, he does not have to worry about binding karma. He does not have to consider ashrav as a uh, factor to be mindful of. This way, he is not, he is engaged in practicing mithyatva without understanding that his practices are actually binding more karmas for him. So it is like there is an example. They say that there is a person who plays like he is a actor. He plays in the plays and he he starts mastering that act of the skill of acting. But the only thing that is a flaw in him is that every time he goes on to play any act, he considers himself as that actor or that character in that play, which goes on beyond the play. So even though he's finished a play, he's off the stage, he keeps thinking that he is like that, he is like that. In doing so, he plays his life like that actor, and he becomes a laughing stock of the society. He does not realize this flaw, and he keeps thinking that the society is not seeing his talent, is not seeing his skills, and he just keeps rolling on in that way. At the end, he does not gain anything but being a stock of laughter for everyone. So he's like this way, this Nishchayabhasi Jeev, he tries to practice as if he's Siddha Bhagwan. He tries to believe that he is a Jnani and he is above and way above Ashrav and Bandha. But in response, what he is gathering is a packet full of karmas. Now, to address to this particular situation, Pandit ji says, सो स्वपर को जानने का तो चिन्ह वैराग्य भाव है. सो समय सार में कहा है, सम्यक दृष्टिर्भवति नियतम ज्ञान वैराग्य शक्ति ही, which translates as सम्यक दृष्टि के निश्चय से ज्ञान वैराग्य शक्ति होती है. So he's addressing this person and says that if you consider that you are Jnani, then you should show some symbol of sign of Vairagya Bhav. Because Gyan leads to Vairagya and Vairagya will lead to further Gyan. They cannot act single-handedly. They both go hand in a glove. And there is a kalash in the footnote there, which is the whole kalash about this Samyak Drashti's nature and the Vairagya, the sign of Vairagya. So, which is actually saying that if Samyak Drashti Jiva knows what is reality, and through that reality, he in the entry of that or in the internal part of that contemplation in this Samyak Drashti Jiva is a Vairagya Bhav. He always, even though he is going into the sensory pleasures, he goes and he's appearing to enjoy the fruits of his livelihood and whatnot. Internally, he understands that these are all the reasons for bondage. And internally, he always thinks of going out of them, disengaging himself with them, and experiencing his true nature in whatever short or long format he can. So that is what he's saying about the Vairagya Bhav. So he says, if you are Jnani and if you are not worried about the Rag and Dvesh, then you show that in the way of your Vairagya Shakti. You show the Vairagya Shakti that you are experiencing because of that. On page 20207, he also quotes the Gatha number or Kalash number 137 from Samay Sarji, which says, Samyak drashtihi swayamayaham jatu bandho na me syat ditya उत्थानोत्पुलकवदना रागेणो अप्याचरन्तु आलम्बन्तां समिति परतां ते यतोद्यापि पापा आत्मानात्मान अवगम विरहान् santi samyaktva shunyah. So the meaning of this gatha is स्वयमेव यह मैं सम्यक दृष्टि हूँ, मेरे कदाचित बंद नहीं है. इस प्रकार ऊंचा मुंह फुलाया है जिन्होंने ऐसे रागी वैराग्य शक्ति रहित आचरण करते हैं तो करो, तथा 5 समिति की सावधानी का अवलंबन लेते हैं तो लो. परंतु वे ज्ञान शक्ति बिना आज भी पापी ही है। इन दोनों आत्मा अनात्मा के ज्ञान रहित पने से सम्यक्त्व रहित ही है। So what he is saying here is that this person is self-proclaiming that he is Samyak Drashti. In a normal case of scenario, Samyak Drashti Jeev will only experience the reality to whatever extent he has overcome Mithyatva. But whether a Jeev is Samyak Drashti or not is only exposed or explained by a Keval Jnani. No other Jiva can say that he is Samyak Drashti or somebody else is Samyak Drashti. From Vyavhar, we call them Samyak Drashti Jiva because we can see those signs and the directions as proclaimed in the Keval Jnana. But this Jiva, the Nishayabhasi Jiva, he self-proclaims that he is Samyak Drashti Jiva. And with that, he is also proclaiming that he is above all these directions that you are giving to everyone else. So he is taking that stance, as he says, "Ucha muh fulaya jinhone." So it's like somebody who has been told that he does not have to follow the instructions given to everyone else. So whenever he is involved in that communication, he will always stand himself out of it and says, this does not interest me, or this does not belong to me, or this is not directed to me. So that is what this person is doing. So when I imagine myself being a Nishayabhasi Jeev, and if I am considering that I am way and above all this, what am I doing is that I am missing out on the possibility of changing my approach, changing my status, the ability of bringing that subtle change within me, which will allow me to progress further on this path. So he is also experiencing the same blockade. So Acharya ji says that if such a Jeev, under the influence of Rag, is not experiencing the Vairagya, but still follows those practices of Samiti and whatever has been guided by Agamas, he is still considered to be a papi. So now, from theoretical perspective, these samitis and all those activities are supposed to be the need, or they are supposed to be the guna of Muni Bhagwan. Like Muni Raj would have in their 28 28 gunas, they have this samiti and gupti. But we are looking at them at a very high state. And we are saying that even those jivas who have understood why they want to be on Mokshamarga, but have not understood it correctly and misguiding themselves by wrongly believing that they are already Siddhasam. So an example that comes to my mind is that somebody is learning the skill of mountaineering, and he is being shown what happens when he reaches to the top of the mountain, and he's constantly been pep talked into saying that even before you start your climbing journey, you have to consider that you have already reached the destination. So when he is at the footstep of the hill or the mountain, he keeps telling himself, I've already reached the top of the mountain. I've already reached to the top of the mountain. Now, the intention here was to keep him motivated to go further. But he has taken it wrongly, and he thinks that now he does not have to do anything. He just stands there and he's already on top of the mountain, which for an onlooker looks like he is just misleading himself. The onlooker will say, you are not even starting to climb. How can you claim that you have climbed a mountain? How can you claim that you reached the pinnacle of it? So same way, this Muni, Muni Bhagwan, he considers that he is following the instructions of his acharyas, his gurus, and whatever comes from the agamas, and he is following all these samitis and guptis and all. but he does not have the true understanding of it. He does not have the need of that, or the relative context of vairagya in that. Then all these activities are only considered as activities of pap. So this is to alert them. It is not to criticize them. It is not to criticize the Nishayabhasi Jeev. It is to alert him that this is where your mistake is. So if your understanding becomes correct, you will be able to take your next step. Same way, this teacher, instructor for this person says that I'm only telling you so that you can motivate yourself to take that action. I'm not suggesting that you have already done. So you have to take that next step with the right understanding, so you can benefit that accomplishment of that activity. So here he says that without the understanding of what is Atma and what is Anatma, whatever you are dealing with is not fruitful for you. There is no samyaktva happening there. And unless you understand the reality, following that path is not possible at all. Then you got it?
Yeah, I got it. So, if you want me to read, I will read. Otherwise, what you are going through is enough, I think. Yeah, but if
Okay.
you want me to, I can read. Yeah.
I'll try and finish page 207 here, and
Okay.
then from 208 we can try doing that.
Okay.
Because I find some of those terminologies I can't
Okay.
translate pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that becomes a challenge.
Okay. Okay.
Then when the Acharya asks this person, so then he says here, फिर पूछते हैं पर को जाना तो पर द्रव्यों में राग आदि करने का क्या प्रयोजन रहा? वहां वह कहता है मोह के उदय से राग आदि होते हैं। पूर्व काल में भरत आदि ज्ञानी हुए, उनके भी विषय कषाय रूप कार्य हुआ सुनते हैं। So now this Acharya asks this Nishayabhasi Jeev that when you realize or you come to know about whatever is non-self, why are you developing rag for that? So why don't you say you remain equanimous to it? Why do you still have to have that feeling of rag for it? So he says that rag happens because of the rise of Mohaniya karma. And if you are telling me that it should not happen, then you go and check the history. Even there are mentions in the Agamas that many scholars in past had experienced the raga in their aesthetic life. When they had renounced the world, even after that, they had experienced raga and dvesh, and there are mentions that they even engaged themselves into sensual pleasures. So if such highly qualified scholars could do it, that means that it is allowed and permissible for me to do it as well. So that is what his argument is. Then Acharya ji responds to him. He says, ज्ञानी के भी मोह के उदय से रागादिक होते हैं, ये सत्य है, परंतु बुद्धि पूर्वक रागादिक नहीं होते। उसका विशेष वर्णन आगे करेंगे। तथा जिनके रागादिक होने का कुछ विषाद नहीं है, उसके नाश का उपाय भी नहीं है, उसको रागादिक बुरे है ऐसा श्रद्धान भी नहीं संभवित होता। और ऐसे श्रद्धान बिना सम्यक दृष्टि कैसे हो सकता है? जीव अजीव आदि तत्वों का श्रद्धान करने का प्रयोजन तो इतना ही श्रद्धान है। तथा भरत आदि सम्यक दृष्टि के विषय कषायों की प्रवृत्ति जैसे होती है, वह भी विशेष रूप से आगे कहेंगे। तू उनके उदाहरण से स्वच्छंद होगा तो तुझे तीव्र आश्रव बंध होगा। So what he is trying to say here is that for somebody who understands and knows the difference between rag bhav, dvesh bhav, and the gyata drashta bhav, for him, the Mohaniya karma are still available there. They're still in the rising state. Like as we understand that until 10th Gunasthan, there are Kashaya related Mohani karma related karmas in package. So they will come up. And it appears that under the influence of that, there is a possible action that can be concluded as under the influence of raga. But he says that this rag is not happening with intention. So he's not intentionally engaging into those rag dvesh related activities. So when he says buddhi purvak and abuddhi purvak, means one is there you are consciously making that decision, and one is there where you are being forced to make that decision. You don't have any desire to go to that end, but the decision is happening forcefully under the influence of something else. So there he says that he does not enjoy or he does not experience that rag intentionally. He is only experiencing them because that is the way how the fruition will happen. And he says that will be discussed later on. But what you need to understand is that you don't consider rag as not doable. You don't consider that I should overcome this rag. I should uh, detach myself from all rag activities. I should discontinue this constant process of rag and dvesh. You are not even considering them as harmful. How would you even consider yourself as Samyak Drashti? So without Samyak Darshan, you are not able to proceed on the mark of Mokshamarga. So the whole process of Samyak Darshan is to consider that it starts with consideration that Rag and Dvesh and Moha are the actual enemies in my transmigrational journey. Removing them, considering that they are harmful to me, removing them would be my next step. But if I don't consider them as harmful at all, I don't consider them as enemies at all, how am I going to proceed to experience Samyak Darshan? And without Samyak Darshan, how can I consider that I am on the path of Moksha Marg and I am actually like Siddha Bhagavan? So he says, uh, whatever activities that are being expressed or experienced in the life of Samyak Drashti Jiva, they are going to be the subject of discussion later on. But just because they have been allowed or they have been seen to engage in such activities, if you consider that you are also eligible to do so, then you are misleading yourself and you're only going towards a dead end. Just like often I see that when they do play some advertisements on the television or anywhere where they have a lot of stunts involved in there, they do put a disclaimer there that don't attempt these stunts on your own because they could be life-threatening. So thinking that, okay, if that person can do, why can't I? Is without understanding my own strengths and weaknesses, without understanding the purpose of doing it, without understanding the technique of doing it, I am only going to be creating problems for myself. And that harm that I could be creating for myself could be life-threatening as well. So the same thing he's telling here, that without understanding why these Samyak Drashti Jivas engage themselves in such actions of rag and dvesh, if you think you are eligible for it, you are actually misleading yourself. He further says, वही कहा है मग्नाज्ञान नये क्षीणो अपि यदति स्वच्छंद मद्योन उद्यमा. सो ज्ञान नय का अवलोकन करने वाले भी जो स्वच्छंद मंद उद्यमी होते हैं वे संसार में डूबते हैं. What it means is that one who is only looking at one perspective or one viewpoint of the subject under consideration and accepts that as the complete knowledge, even though he is not completely engaging himself in that revelation, he is likely to keep continuing in the cycle of transmigration. So this is why Madam says, and we often hear from others as well, that half-cooked knowledge is more dangerous than not knowing at all. So here, what viewpoint he has gathered from whatever source he has been able to, he considers that as a complete knowledge in itself. And even though he may not go on the full length of practicing the direction, because of that misconception, he is going to keep moving in the migrational process throughout this journey. Then in the last line he says, और भी वहाँ ज्ञानी न कर्म न जातु कर्तुम उचितम इत्यादि कलश में तथापि न निर्गलम चरितुष्मीयते ज्ञानिना इत्यादि कलश में स्वच्छंदी होने का निषेध किया है। बिना इच्छा के जो कार्य हो कर्म बंधन का कारण नहीं है। अभिप्राय से कर्ता होकर करे और ज्ञाता रहे ये तो बनता नहीं है इत्यादि निरूपण किया है। So we are on page number 208. So what he says that through this Kalash, Acharya Amritchandra ji is trying to say that whatever way you are interpreting it, but if you take that as an exception for yourself and you proceed on that path, then you are misleading. So he says you should stop becoming a Swachhandi. So that is definitely no. He says that any action that is done without intention or desire does not become the source of karma bondage. But if your interpretation and intention is such that you are doing it with full commitment for that act, and you do the activity, but you keep telling yourself that you are not the doer of that activity, you are only a Gyata Drashta, that cannot happen. So it's like whenever things go wrong, we tend to blame the surroundings. So what we are trying to do is that we don't want to take the ownership of any action that backfires. So in a way, when our intention are driving us in the wrong direction, when our activity is wrong, then to say that I am not the doer of this activity is not going to let us go scot-free. So we will have to bear the consequences of that. This is what Acharya ji is trying to say. So what I will do now, Mahendra sir,
Yes, yeah.
read, there are 3 paragraphs,
Yeah.
or 4 paragraphs in line,
Hmm.
and then you can translate those in English, and then we can discuss that.
Okay.
So he says, इसीलिए रागादिक को बुरे अहितकारी जानकर उनके नाश के अर्थ उद्यम रखना। वहां अनुक्रम से पहले तीव्र रागादि छोड़ने के अर्थ अशुभ कार्य छोड़कर शुभ में लगना और पश्चात मंद रागादि भी छोड़ने के अर्थ शुभ को भी छोड़कर शुद्ध उपयोग रूप होना तथा कितने ही जीव अशुभ में क्लेश मानकर व्यापार आदि कार्य व स्त्री सेवन आदि कार्यों को भी घटाते हैं तथा शुभ को हेय जानकर शास्त्र अभ्यास आदि कार्यों में नहीं प्रवर्ते हैं वीतराग भाव रूप शुद्ध उपयोग को प्राप्त हुए नहीं है इसीलिए वे जीव अर्थ काम धर्म मोक्ष रूप पुरुषार्थ से रहित होते हुए आलसी निरुद्यमी होते हैं उनकी निंदा पंचास्तिक आय की व्याख्या में की है उनके लिए दृष्टांत दिया है कि जैसे बहुत खीर शक्कर खाकर पुरुष आलसी होता है वह जैसे वृक्ष निरुद्यमी है वैसे वे जीव आलसी निरुद्यमी हुए हैं so you can translate that.
Yeah. Okay. There, step by step, first of all, one should give up inauspicious acts for forsaking intense passions, etc., and should engage oneself in auspicious acts. Thereafter, even for forsaking feeble passions, one should give up auspicious acts also and evolve the state of passionless contact, which is Shuddha Yoga. Further, Many people reduce activities relating to business, etc., as well as cohabitation, etc., feeling anguish in the inauspicious acts, and also knowing the auspicious conduct to be worthless, do not study the scriptures, etc., and have also not attained passionless form of pure conduct of self-absorbedness, which is a Suddhobi Yoga. Therefore, they become idle, inactive by forsaking endeavor for wealth, sex, piety, and liberation. They have been censured in the commentary of Panchastikaya. The example given with regard to them is this. As a person becomes idle by eating huge quantity of kheer, rice cooked with milk and sugar, and tree stands effortless. Similarly, these Nichayabasis have become idle and inactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what he is trying to tell this Nishya is that first thing is that you have to consider that this rag and dvesh and moha, they are harmful to you. So understanding it from a strong contemplation, you should attempt to get rid of them. Now, if it's not possible to overcome the influence of them at one go, then initially you should come out of all the inauspicious activities which are the reason for more karmic bondage and stay in the or adopt the auspicious activities. And when you feel more stronger and more resolute in your pursuit, you can give up the auspicious activities and you stay engaged into your Shuddha Upyog. Now, when he says that, he is also giving us example of somebody who says that when he's asked, why don't you get married, or why don't you start a family, or why don't you earn livelihood? He says that all these things are ashubh or inauspicious because they will be feeding me my um, bad nature. So you have to work hard for livelihood. And what do you do after livelihood? When you pass away, the money goes to someone else. So it's worthless. Why do you want to get married and get into the family? Because the families are the areas of problems and conflicts and all not. So they will also be not giving me any peace. So I should not do them. On the other hand, then he says that all this Shastra Abhyas or literature or scripture studies, they are not fruitful either. He does not stay engaged in them because he says, I don't need to know anything there. I already know what I need to do. So he's not even engaging in those auspicious objects, and he is not even experiencing his pure nature of without any rag. So because of this, he is not engaging himself into any kind of purusharth of the four kind of purusharths mentioned. So when he is not engaged into any of that, he is just idle. He is just idle and he's not doing anything for that matter. So he's in Panchastikai, he has been compared to somebody who consumes a heavy meal of a lot of sugar and a lot of rice and kheer and all that. And when he sees a like a plant or like a tree, and he sees that this tree is giving a good amount of shade, he goes and lies down under the tree, and he tells everyone that he does not want to lie down there, but like what he is supposed to do, the tree is giving him the shade, so actually the tree is inviting him to have a sleep. It's not him who wants to sleep. So he is blaming everything else outside, and he believes that he is a pure form. He cannot be uh, blemished, or he does not have any sort of blemishes on him. So further, Acharyaji asks such Nishchayabhasi, he says, अब इनसे पूछते हैं कि तुम्हें बाह्य तो शुभ अशुभ कार्यों को घटाया, परंतु उपयोग तो बिना आलंबन के रहता नहीं है, तो तुम्हारा उपयोग कहाँ रहता है? सो कहो। यदि वह कहे कि आत्मा का चिंतन करता है, तो शास्त्र आदि द्वारा अनेक प्रकार से आत्मा के विचार को तो तुमने विकल्प ठहराया, और आत्मा का कोई विशेषण जानने में बहुत काल लगता नहीं है। बारंबार एक रूप चिंतन में छद्मस्त का उपयोग लगता नहीं है। गणधर आदि का भी उपयोग इस प्रकार नहीं रह सका, इसीलिए वह भी शास्त्र आदि कार्यों में प्रवर्ते है। तेरा उपयोग गणधर आदि से भी कैसे शुद्ध हुआ माने, इसीलिए तेरा कहना प्रमाण नहीं है। आप मेहनत सर।
Yeah. Now we ask them, though you have reduced the external acts of Shubha, which is a virtuous act, and Shubha, which is vicious acts, but the Upayoga, the active knowledge, cannot remain engaged without engrossing in it engrossing it in some subject, some object. So tell us, where do you engage your Upayoga? If you say that I meditate on soul, then you have earlier maintained that contemplation on soul through the study of scriptures is involvement in vikalpa, rambling of upayoga, and much time is not required in knowing any quality of the soul. The upayoga of non-omniscient cannot remain fixed by repeatedly meditating in one way. Even the upayoga of Ganadhars, which are chief monks, etc., cannot remain fixed in this way. Therefore, they too engage themselves in the study of scriptures, etc. How could we believe your upayoga to be purer than that of the Ganadharas, etc.? Therefore, your statement is not authentic.
Yeah. Thank you, Menon sir. So what he's trying to say here is that if you are not if where like say if you are considering everything external as auspicious and inauspicious, then where is your focus going on to? Who are you meditating upon? What is the focal point of your attention? So he says that I am focusing on my true nature, the soul. Now the response from Acharya ji is that you are saying that scriptures or studying the scriptures and talking about different features of soul are all vikalpa, which means that they would be leading you to indecisiveness. And any particular aspect of the soul that you are meditating upon does not need a long contemplation. It can be experienced within a short period of time, which means that to concentrate on your focal point or on your subject for a longer period of time, you will need to know a little bit more about that subject. And that can only happen with knowing or reading the scriptures. Even the jivas who are highly evolved, like the Gandharas, cannot constantly focus on a subject for a longer period of time. That is why they have to take the refuge of these shastras and understand that the different aspects of the subject of their meditation. So if you are saying that your focus or your meditation is far superior to these Gandharas, then it does not validate itself. So we cannot accept that as the reality. So if we consider, if we talk about this at a little bit with an example, whenever we try to meditate on a subject, whether it is an active meditation or a passive meditation, if we only know one aspect of that subject, our meditation will not go much further than contemplating on the aspect that we know of. So it may not take us to the complete conclusion. At the same time, it will not stay steady for longer period of time. So in that very next moment or in a very next possible change, the change will require to know something else about the object. Otherwise, it becomes boring. So it does not allow us to continue in that state of meditation. Like for example, if I am thinking of say a particular fruit, and if I only have seen the picture of that fruit, if I contemplate on the picture of that fruit, I might be able to contemplate for maybe 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second. After fifth second, the brain is going to tell me, show me something different. Otherwise, this is boring. Otherwise, there's nothing more to know. So I have to know now what will be the smell of that fruit, what will be the color of the fruit from inside, what would be the nutritional
Yes.
factor of that fruit, what would be the taste of that fruit. So everything else will have to be falling into place. If not, then my meditation will be half, and it will not lead me to any conclusion, nor will it let me stay in that state for longer. So now that I have understood that I meditated on the picture of that fruit, next thing is now I'll go and study what is the shape of it, what is the color of it, what is the taste of it, what is the feature of it, what are the nutritional value of it, what is the habitat of this fruit. So as I study each and every portion, I meditate, and then I come to a conclusion that this is the wholesome information about the fruit. Now I can say that I can meditate on this fruit without getting disengaged. But he is not able to do that because he is saying that reading about that or trying to find everything else is only going to give me more optional knowledges. And going into those optional situations may be not uh, proactively accepted by my mind. And as much as I'm understanding that I'm Siddha Bhagwan, like I am without the karmas, I don't need to know anymore. So he is not trying to find other aspects and perspectives of the subject that he is meditating upon. And that's where he says that even if a highly evolved soul like a Gandhar cannot stay engaged in his meditation on a subject for without the fundamental basis of a scripture, how can you do that? You are not even a Samyadrashi yet. Then the last paragraph says, जैसे कोई व्यापार आदि में निरुद्यमी होकर निठल्ला जैसे तैसे काल गंवाता है, उसी प्रकार तू धर्म में निरुद्यमी होकर प्रमाद सहित हो यूं ही काल गंवाता है। कभी कुछ चिंतवन सा करता है, कभी बातें बनाता है, कभी भोजन आदि करता है, परंतु अपना उपयोग निर्मल करने के लिए शास्त्र अभ्यास, तपश्चरण, भक्ति आदि कर्मों में नहीं प्रवरता। सुना सा होकर प्रमादी होने का नाम शुद्ध उपयोग ठहराता है। वहां क्लेश थोड़ा होने से जैसे कोई आलसी बनकर पड़े रहने में सुख माने, वैसे आनंद मानता है। Yes, sir.
As
I have a
some,
question.
Sure,
yes.
sure.
Can I?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. Uh, so this is a question that has been bothering me for, I think, always.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about meditating on the soul,
Hmm.
what is it actually?
Hmm.
When we in Vipassana, when we do it, it is very
Hmm.
clear what you need to do. Okay.
Hmm.
But when you talk about meditating on the soul in our scriptures,
Hmm.
the soul is an intangible. It is
Yeah.
to be felt.
Yeah.
So how do you do it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
any idea on that?
Sure.
Anything that you can tell us about it?
Uh,
Yeah.
I would be lying to say that I can give you an honest answer on this. We can put this question to Priya ma'am as well. But what my limited understanding is that process of meditation is, if I understand it correctly, is a unifocal activity where the subject that you're focusing on is the only subject that becomes your attention or that grabs your attention. So at that point of time, everything else around you is obliterated in from your sensory, non-sensory, parasensory, or whichever kind of awareness that you are looking for. So when we say meditate, meditation in essence means be aware. So awareness is when you are aware in our physical sense, as we are talking about now, we are aware of factors that are outside us, subjects that are outside us, subjects that we can feel from sensory information, sensory, what you call the process of sensory based knowledge. But the awareness can only be of any benefit to us when the awareness is realized by the one who is aware of that. Right. So even when we talk about Vipassana, what we trying to see here is that in this process of meditation, you are focusing on your breathing and the sensations that you are experiencing. But that is the preliminary ground level activity, because that is where you prepare yourself to go to the next level of further being more aware. Now, if you are not aware of those fundamental things around you, then to go into the next level of awareness is going to be more difficult. So awareness has to be narrowed down. Like, for example, you're watching a game of cricket, for example. Now you are watching the bowler bowl, you are watching the batsman hit the ball, and you're watching the fielder running to catch the ball or to stop the ball going any further. Now these three activities cannot happen in the same moment, right? Either you can focus on the bowler, or you can focus on the batsman, or you can focus on the fielder. But your cognition is recognizing that these three activities are happening parallelly. Your awareness is not recognizing it. So the cognition is going in the whole picture as it is. But when you want to understand the process, you have to be aware on the subject that you are trying to process on. So if you want to process how is the bowler bowling, then you have to focus on the bowler itself. You have to be aware. Now, you cannot be aware of that bowler by himself. You also need to know what goes into the skill of the bowling. So you need to know if he is by what standard he is a fast bowler or is a slow bowler. Is he spinning action bowler or he is a swinging action bowler? Then what can happen with the ball from when it's released from his fingers? How can he make those balls do what they need to do? By his fingers or by his actions. So you need to be aware of all those things. And at the end of it, your awareness has to be what is the purpose of that? Whether the bowler is very accurate in what he is doing, but if he's meeting the standard, that his intention is to hit the ball to the stump so that the batsman does not get another chance. So when you are coming to that, that will be your more narrowed awareness. So when we talk about soul, the only reason that we cannot experience soul now is because we think that it is intangible and it's an object which has got nothing in around it. It's an abstract opinion. It's an abstract viewpoint, or it's an abstract idea. So gradually, when we start looking from focusing on the body and say, this is the body, but this is not me. So then now I know that, okay, though if I am not body, then what I am next? Then my awareness becomes more narrower, and it says that, okay, so you are the one who is running through this body, and when this body disappears, another body appears. So which means that now I'm looking at being aware of the one who is running this body. So now then it says, no, you can't even run this body because the body is run because of your rag and dvesh. So now I'm focusing on the rag and dvesh that is happening within me. So now then I say, now I'm told that you are not even the rag and dvesh. So now I would say, if I am not the rag and dvesh, then who I am. So then I go further in and look at what could be the possibility without the rag and dvesh. So as I gradually focus on my awareness and make it more and more micro level, and more focused and more subtler, then there will be an awareness that what is springing out now has to be the soul. So meditating on soul doesn't mean that we have to meditate on an abstract form, but gradually discarding whatever is in the three-dimensional form will allow us to go to the next step of awareness, to the next step of awareness, to the next step of awareness, until we come to that final conclusion. Like again, going back to our practical example, like I'm eating a sweet. Now, when I'm eating the sweet, I consider that the object that I am eating is what is giving me the feeling of happiness because of the sweet. But when I am told that if that object was supposed to be giving everybody a feeling of sweetness and happiness, then everybody who would have consumed that object should have felt the same way. But that is not the case. Somebody who does not like the sweets will say, oh, this is a horrible experience. So it means that that object did not have the ability to generate that kind of a response. So there is something else that has to be causing that response. So then I could say my taste buds are more receptive of sweetness. Somebody else's taste buds are not equally receptive of sweetness. So then that is a first step of disengagement, first step of that differential analysis. Then I would say, okay, I cannot judge that my taste buds are any stronger than the others, but I can only infer it because this is how the things are. So then I would say if my taste buds for sweetness are that strong, then everything that I consume, which is supposed to be sweet, should give me the same feeling throughout, regardless of what the product is, right? But that doesn't happen either. When some product I like is sweet, I like it. The other product that is sweet, I would say I don't like that anymore. So that means that there should be something more than that taste bud itself. That is what is giving me that feeling. So that means that I have to go beyond the taste buds. And gradually, when I start differential analysis in that way, I come to a conclusion that actually it was not even the sweet that was giving me the happiness. Happiness is my nature. And that happiness sprung because of the nimitta of the sweet and how I realized it. So now if I focus on that happiness, then I go to the root source of that happiness, and that's how I come to the meditation of soul.
Just two allied questions. One is when you talk about while meditating, if you talk about thinking about the attributes of the soul, okay, like you mentioned about the fruit and the gunas of the fruit, aren't you actually getting in asaravas, while meditating, and you are actually not being aware. You are actually channelizing your thought process towards something. Okay, so that is one. And second question is, when you talk about being objective oriented while meditating, okay, aren't you actually craving for something?
You can look at from a broader perspective. What you are saying makes sense, that you're driving your thought process into a direction. And meditation is not about driving anything at all. It's just awareness, right? So to answer your first question, you are not actually meditating, or you're not actually driving your thoughts to look at those aspects of the object of meditation. That you are going to do when you're studying it through the scriptures. For example, if I say that, say an apple is a red apple. I have a red apple in front of me. Now, I want to meditate on that red apple. At that time, I'm not driving my force of thoughts to look at the redness of that apple. I have studied that redness already before the meditation process started. But now I am becoming aware of that redness of that apple in my meditation. So the meditation is not driving me to look at the color. The meditation is driving me to become aware of it. When I'm driving my thoughts, that means I am expecting a response. Right? But when I'm not expecting a response, when I'm just accepting it as it is, and I'm becoming aware of it, there are two things that happen. One is becoming aware of something, and the other thing is that responding to that awareness. So our problem is in the sansar, we are responding to our awareness. And that is why we are bringing ashrava. That is why we are bonding. When you stop that process, awareness is not going to bring ashrava. Awareness is just, as we say, being knower and seer. Just like in Vipassana, they say, you don't crave. The craving is basically driving your thoughts to that. You are observing as it is. The only next step that is missing at the preliminary stage is that you are not observing the observer, which is what the whole process of meditating on the soul is. So when I'm sitting in meditation in Vipassana, and suddenly I get pain in my knee bend. So what I'm doing is I'm observing the pain, the sensations of pain generated in the knee. And all I am telling myself is these are impermanent. So they are going to come and they'll go. Now, if I observe that impermanence, then I am not binding karmas. But if I am expecting that this impermanence, I want to see how long they're going to last. So I want to be responsive of it to say, oh, have they gone? Have they gone? Have they gone? They haven't gone yet. They haven't gone yet. They haven't gone yet. Will they go? Will they go? Will they go? Then the craving starts. So when you're observing and you're saying that if whether it goes or not, you understand that your awareness tells you that they are not stationary, they are not permanent, they're going to go. So now whether they go or they don't go, you are not going to be judging on what's happening. So there is no craving. So when there is no craving, there is no asaro. So that response mechanism has to be stopped. And that is the whole purpose of training through Vipassana, is to stop that response process, because even though we have been told that observe these sensations, we do get carried away in our past sanskaras, and we can come to a conclusion that I want to engage into that sensory experiences. I want to experience those senses. Now, if there is no sense happening, then I will say, oh, did I meditate properly? Did I come to the right conclusion? Was I doing it rightly? Was my technique flawed? So I don't even accept that that is also natural. Right? Sometimes when we sit for the meditation, at the end of it, we all ask each other, how did we go today? And I would most likely come out and say, today I did not have a good meditation. And my teacher straight away tells me, if you tell that, then that means that you haven't understood Vipassana. Because there is no good or bad meditation at all. Meditation is meditation. You stay in awareness. Yes, you did not go to that stage of experiencing the experiencer. That is why you doubt whether you did meditation. Maybe you got carried away with your thoughts, and that is why you went away ahead with that, and you thought your meditation is flawed. But meditation cannot be flawed. Meditation is state of awareness. That is what he's trying to say here, is that you pretend that you are meditating, but you don't know how long your meditation is going to last unless and until you know what different factors you need to be meditating on, until you come to that state where you can experience your experiencer. When you can experience that being a Nagyata Drashta Bhav, and if somebody who is highly evolved like a Gandhar Bhagwan also cannot stay engaged that far, we don't even know what scriptures are. How are we claiming that we know all this and we like Siddha Bhagwan?
Sure,
Right?
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I just hope I answered your question, but yeah, please feel free to.
Just last before I don't want to hold you
No, that's okay.
would you say that in our journey in trying to find our soul, uh, the Jainism way, we can use Vipassana towards that, because I've seen when you're doing Vipassana, our awareness is reasonably high and we are not non-reactive. So do you think that could be a way to really go towards the soul?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Put it this way, I had heard from another scholar that Vipassana is now in these times we call it as a technique, but that is a process that has been experienced and practiced even in Jain Munis, and in there are a lot of references do come in Jain scriptures from uh, past eras where they used to practice vipassana. And vipassana is not a term. Vipassana is an activity. Just like we say, I am going to Mumbai. So Mumbai is a place, so it is a noun. But going to Mumbai, that action of going is a action. It's a verb, right? So same way, vipassana is also not a noun. It is a verb. You are observing the observer. That is all vipassana means. But observing the observer from all possible aspects. विशेष रूप से पश्यना करना is vipassana. Pashyana means pashya means it's a Prakrit word for seeing. So you are seeing through that the eyes of your soul of what everything, what a knower and seer is vipassana. So it's definitely very, very helpful in the journey. The thing that I find very interesting and what I learned from Parmagam honors is the reason why I want to look for the soul. Why do I want to feel the soul in the first place? Like, am I not happy with the way things are going with me? Am I not contented with how things are going? Am I not contented with what I have received? What is it that drives me to look for that soul, and what is it that drives me to understand that soul is what I have understood from Parmagam honors. So I am supposing everybody would have had different experiences, but I definitely say that Vipassana is very, very hugely beneficial for understanding Jainism as such.
Sure. Thanks. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No problems.
No problem.
Menon sir, you are taking the
Yes.
translation of the last
Yes.
paragraph? Yeah.
Yeah. That as someone in business remains idle and indolently passes time somehow. Similarly, Nityavasi also remaining idle in religious conduct uselessly wastes time indolently. Sometimes he pretends contemplating on something, sometimes indulges in worthless talks, at other times takes food, etc. But for purifying his upayoga, he does not engross in the study of shastras, penances, worship, etc. Remaining inactive and idle, he says he is engrossed in Shuddha Yoga. In such a state, there being less anguish, he believes that he is happy. In the same way as an ideal person feels pleasure in idleness.
Yeah, thank you. So what he is trying to say here, and he is actually talking to the Munis here in this particular paragraph. So it's attending to even a higher journey, or where Jiva has actually made the resolution to go on to the Mokshamarga. So he says, just like somebody who is in the business, and he believes that he's going to wait for the customers to come for his business to get flourished, and he's not going to do any attempt to let the business flow in the right direction. What will happen? He's just going to waste his time. The business is not going to bring any profits to him. In the same way, you have taken a resolution to understand your true self, and you believe that you are that Siddha Bhagwan. And because that belief has taken such a strong thing in your mind, that you are not even engaging into those scripture readings or anything that is required to strengthen that belief or that faith. So by doing so, you're becoming more lazy and you're wasting your opportunity and time. So sometimes what you will do is you will appear as if you are thinking about something, you're contemplating about something. Sometimes you will gather people around you, and you keep talking to them about what you think is right. Sometimes you feel like, okay, this is all enough now. I'm hungry. I should go and have my meals. So you are wasting your time in doing those activities which are not productive or helpful for your own benefit. You're not engaging into any Shastra Abhyas. You're not even fasting or participating in any penance activities, and you're not even engaging into the bhakti. So your engagement is like that lazy person. Now, and when you are asked what are you doing, you say you are in the Shuddha Upyog. So you are you're falsely experiencing the bliss or the happiness, just like a lazy person who is not wanting to do anything. He feels that he's happy by being lazy. So in the same way, you're not becoming productive or caring for your own benefit on long term. So then we move on to page number 209. अथवा जैसे कोई स्वप्न में अपने को राजा मानकर सुखी हो, उसी प्रकार अपने को ब्रह्म से सिद्ध समान शुद्ध मानकर स्वयं ही आनंदित होता है। अथवा जैसे कहीं रति मानकर सुखी होता है, उसी प्रकार कुछ विचार करने में रति मानकर सुखी होता है, उसे अनुभव जनित आनंद कहता है। तथा जैसे कहीं अरति मानकर उदास होता है, उसी प्रकार व्यापार आदि पुत्र आदि को खेद का कारण जानकर उनसे उदास रहता और उसे वैराग्य मानता है। सो ऐसा ज्ञान वैराग्य तो कषाय गर्भित है। वीतराग रूपी उदासीन दशा में जो निराकुलता होती है, वह सच्चा आनंद ज्ञान वैराग्य ज्ञानी जीवों के चरित्र मोह की हीनता होने पर प्रकट होता है। That's the first paragraph. If you want to translate that, please.
Yeah. Oh, good. Or as someone in dream feels happy considering himself to have become a king, similarly, he feels pleasure by believing himself fallaciously to be pure like Siddha God. Or as someone feels pleasure considering himself in an agreeable state, similarly, by engrossing himself in some agreeable thought, he feels happy and treats it to be happiness evolved by self realization. Further, as someone believing some state to be unagreeable feels dejected, similarly, considering business, etc., son, etc., to be the cause of sorrow, he remains dejected from them and treat it to be renunciation. So all such type of knowledge and renunciation is still full of passions. The feeling of unperturbed tranquility, which results from attachment-less form of dispassionate state, that true bliss, knowledge, and renunciation is evolved only to right believers in the state of feeble rise of Charitra Moha, which is conduct eluding karma.
Thank you.
Just one question. Where
Sure,
did
sure.
Mahendran sir read it from? Which page?
I'm
209.
in the PDF 295 completed now.
Oh, 295. Okay, I think it's
You have
Yeah,
English or
it is English PDF.
English.
PDF. I'm having a soft copy. I don't know whether hard copy has the same page.
Same. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Right.
Okay. So what he's trying to attend here is that he is talking to this person who is under delusion that he is a Siddha Bhagwan, like he's a Siddha Bhagwan. So he says, just like somebody who is happy being a king in his dreams, you are also delusionally thinking that you are like a Siddha Bhagwan and you are staying contented with that. And you feel happy about that. Similarly, just like somebody who is feels the happiness when some things of his likings happen to him, you think about those things in your thoughts and you think that they are your likes, so you become happy. And actually, those things have not happened, but you just imagine about that. Similarly, when somebody feels unhappy about some experiences which they dislike, you don't actually experience those dislikes, but you imagine about those dislikes and you consider that you are unhappy because of those dislikes. So unless and you claim that those are all experiences. So this is like living in a fool's paradise. So when things are not happening, you're not even realizing, you're not experiencing, you just consider them as your experiences and you fool yourself. So he says that somebody may say that having a business, running a business, having a family, they are all the root cause of desire. They are all the root cause of disharmony. They are all the root cause of sorrow, grief in real life. So that is why I don't do business. I don't have a family, and you are only imagining about that, and you consider that you are tyagi, you are a vairagi. That is the foolishness. So he says, this kind of a vairagya is called kashaya garbhit, which means they talk about vairagya from three perspectives. One is called kashaya garbhit vairagya, which means that it happens when you feel grief or you feel unhappy with the situation that goes around you. The second one is called Smashan Vairagya, which happens like what we call as when you go to the cremation grounds and you feel that moment of dejection. I mean, I won't call it dejection or disgust, but that moment of realization that all that you are doing sums up to final destination being your being cremated. And the third one is called Gyan Garbhit Vairagya. So this Gyan Garbhit Vairagya is where you understand the thing, you rationalize the things, you logically experience those things, and based on that, whatever your Vairagya will come is unshakable. And that is why they keep asking us constantly to keep engaging in Shastra Abhyas, because our experiential Vairagya will always be challenged by the situations. And on those occasions, if we engage ourselves into those scriptural studies, that will support our resolution for our Vairagya. So he says here that this kind of a vitarag form of Vairagya and the associated bliss can only happen to those jivas whose charitramonya karma is very feeble and their resolution is very strong of self-realization. So you are falsely telling yourself that you are a Siddha Bhagavan kind of a jiv. So next he says, तथा वह व्यापार आदि क्लेश छोड़कर यथेष्ट भोजन आदि द्वारा सुख ही हुआ प्रवर्तता है और वहां अपने को कषाय रहित मानता है, परंतु इस प्रकार आनंद रूप होने से तो रौद्र ध्यान होता है। जहां सुख सामग्री को छोड़कर दुख सामग्री का संयोग होने पर संकलेश न हो, राग द्वेष उत्पन्न न हो, तब निकषाय भाव होता है। ऐसी भ्रम रूप उनकी प्रवृत्ति पाई जाती है। Yes, Mahendra sir.
Yep. Further, by giving up business, etc., afflictive acts, and by taking agreeable food, etc., he remains inactive and feels pleasure. In such a state, he believes as if he has become passionless, but the feeling of happiness in such a state causes cruel meditation, which is Raudradhya. Wherever by renunciation of objects of pleasure and association of objects of misery, one does not feel afflicted and also does not become happy or miserable, then in such a state, passionless disposition is evolved.
Thank you. So what he says is that such a jiv, under the pretext of considering himself as a Siddha Bhagwan, he is not engaging himself into any social or social activities or like business and family and all that. And when he doesn't have any of those obligations to meet, his engagement will only be in his sensual pleasures. So he will be engaging in food and in and we do sometimes come across cases where we may hear somebody who wants to take Muni Diksha because he thinks that he is not worthy enough to be able to do the social responsibilities, and he feels that over here people will be obliged to feed him and those kind of things. So this sort of congruences with that, where he says that because he is not inclining himself for any social or so those kind of socio-economic commitments, he is engaging into this food, and he believes that because he is not engaging himself into all the ashubha activities, so he is without any passion. He does not have any desire. That's what he thinks. And what happens though is that when he is not given the food that he likes, he becomes angry. So in a way, this is also feeding his passion. So this is called Rodra Dhyan. So he is engaging in activities where he will be able to receive what he is happy about. But the real nature of passionless disposition is when whether you get what you like or whether you get what you dislike, you stay equanimous in both states. And there is not an iota of a thought going to your mind which is exposing you to the feeling of like or dislike. That is when you can call that you are passionless, in a passionless disposition. So he says these kind of activities of delusional nature are found in this Nishchayabhasi, who is practicing under the influence of Nishchayabhas. Then further he now is talking about what is the consequence of this kind of practice or this kind of belief system. So he says, इस प्रकार जो जीव केवल निश्चय आभास के अवलंबी है, उन्हें मिथ्या दृष्टि जानना। जैसे वेदांती व सांख्यमती जीव केवल शुद्ध आत्मा के श्रद्धानी है, उसी प्रकार इन्हें भी जानना, क्योंकि श्रद्धान की समानता के कारण उनका उपदेश इन्हें इष्ट लगता है, इनका उपदेश उन्हें इष्ट लगता है, तथा उन जीवों को ऐसा श्रद्धान है कि केवल शुद्ध आत्मा के चिंतन से तो संवर निजरा होते हैं, वह मुक्त आत्मा के सुख का अंश वहां प्रकट होता है, तथा जीव के गुणस्थान आदि अशुद्ध भावों का और अपने अतिरिक्त अन्य जीव पुद्गल आदि का चिंतन करने से आश्रव बंद होता है, इसीलिए अन्य विचार से परामुख रहते हैं। महेंद्र सर।
Yes. Thus, the Nichayabhasis are found having the aforesaid types of deluded conducts. Therefore, all such jivas who are followers of Nichayabhasa only are to be known as misbelievers. Such jivas are to be known like Vedantins and some Sankhya-matis who believe the soul to be pure only, because due to similarity of faith, Nichayabhas find their precept agreeable, and these people find the approach of Nichayabhasis to be agreeable.
Yeah, and there is one more after that.
Okay. Further, those jivas possess such type of faith that only be contemplation of pure soul, samvara and nirjara are caused, and in such a state, a part of bliss like that of liberated soul is manifested. And by contemplating on impure dispositions of jiva, like a gunasthan, etc., and by thinking about other jivas, pudgalas, etc., accepting the self, asrava and bandha of karma are caused. Therefore, they remain averse to other kind of thoughts.
Thank you. So now he says that as a result of this kind of faith and this kind of wrong practice, he should be considered as mithya drashti or pervasive jiva. So he's quoting here reference to Vedanta and Sankhya Mati, where in Vedanta and Sankhya Mat, they talk about jiva as Shuddha Atma. So they say that there is a Shuddha Atma and there is a Purusha. There is a, what do you call, nature, Prakriti. So Shuddha Atma is always Shuddha Atma, and the Prakriti is the one who is a doer or is the one who is organizing the way system works, the environment and whatnot. So he also finds that his thoughts and his ideology matches with what they are saying, he tends to get more engaged with them. Now, Jain Darshan also says that from Nishchay perspective, Jiva is Shuddha, but it is a relative talk. From some Vyavhar point of view, until this Jiva is free from all the bondage, he cannot realize the pureness of his existence or his reality. So just to consider in your thought process or in your contemplation that I am Shuddha, I am Shuddha, I am Shuddha, does not lead you to that pureness, because you are ignoring whatever is the other side of the coin. And until and unless you make that call, you are only directing yourself into the wrong direction. So he says that he tends to be more leaning towards such Sankhya-mati or Vedanti philosophies as they match with his understanding. Then he says that such a Jeev also believes that only understanding Keval Gyan and experiencing, understanding Shuddha Atma and staying in, understanding in the contemplation of Shuddha Atma, all the karmas will be shed. So there will be samvar and nirjara happening, which relatively is true. There is no objection to that, but it is relatively true. When you look at the perspective, then you also have to look at the other viewpoint. So he says that when the samvar nijra happens, he feels that he is now realizing his self, even if it is a smallest portion of it. And he says that he believes that going into understanding the different perspectives or characteristics given of Jiva, like the Gunasthan and the Pudgalas, their nature, and the nature of the other four dravyas, is actually bringing you to more vikalpas. So that is going to be the reason for ashrav and bandha. So one should not leave their domain and think about all these characteristics at all. Otherwise, they will be bonded by the karmas, which relatively is true. But again, that relatively is that stepwise process which will bring you to that final conclusion. But without knowing the ground level work, without doing the groundwork, if we straight away conclude that and stop ourselves or don't progress on the path correctly, we are only going to be mithya drashti. Then he says, सो यह भी सत्य श्रद्धा नहीं है, क्योंकि शुद्ध स्वद्रव्य का चिंतन करो या अन्य चिंतन करो, यदि वीतरागता सहित भाव हो तो वहां संवर निर्जरा ही है, और जहां राग आदि रूप भाव हो वहां आश्रव बंध ही है। यदि पर द्रव्य को जानने से ही आश्रव बंध होते हो तो केवली तो समस्त पर द्रव्यों को जानते हैं, इसीलिए उनके भी आश्रव बंध होंगे। फिर वह कहता है कि छद्मस्त के तो पर द्रव्य चिंतन से आश्रव बंध होता है, सो भी नहीं है, क्योंकि शुक्ल ध्यान में भी मुनियों को छहों द्रव्यों के द्रव्य गुण पर्यायों का चिंतन होने का निरूपण किया है, और अवधि मन पर्याय आदि में पर द्रव्यों को जानने की ही विशेषता होती है, तथा चौथे गुणस्थान में कोई अपने स्वरूप का चिंतन करता है, उसके भी आश्रव बंध अधिक है तथा गुण श्रेणी निर्जरा नहीं है। पांचवें छठे गुण स्थान में आहार विहार आदि क्रिया होने पर द्रव्य चिंतन से भी आश्रव बंध थोड़ा है और गुण श्रेणी निर्जरा होती रहती है। इसीलिए स्वद्रव्य पर द्रव्य के चिंतन से निर्जरा बंध नहीं होते। रागादिक घटाने से निर्जरा है और रागादिक होने से बंध है। उसे राग आदि के स्वरूप का यथार्थ ज्ञान नहीं है, इसीलिए अन्यथा मानता है। Yes, Mahendran sir.
Yeah. So such type of belief is also not correct, because whether one contemplates on pure self soul or on other non-self objects, if this contemplation be free from attachment, etc., then only samara nirjara will result. However, if such meditation be full of attachment, etc., then asravabandha only or caused. If the asravabandha be caused only by knowing the other objects, then the omniscient will also be found having asravabandha because all other substances are known to them. He further says, asravabandha is caused to non-omniscience by the contemplation of other non-self objects. But this is not so, because in scriptures it is stated that in the state of Shukla Dhyana, even monks contemplate on all six substances, their attributes and modifications. Moreover, in clairvoyance and telepathy type of knowledge, only knowing of other substances especially is found. And in fourth Gunasthan, one who contemplates on self-soul, to him also Asravabandha is more, and Gunashreni Nirjara is not found. Whereas in the fifth and sixth Gunasthanas, in the process of meditation on other non-self objects, Asravabandha is less in spite of involvement in the activity of taking food and movement, etc. And the Gunashreni Nirjara continuously takes place. Therefore, Nirjara and Bandha of karmas are not caused by contemplation on either self-soul substance or other non-self substance, rather by decrease in passions, attachment, etc. Nirjara is caused, and by feeling of attachment, etc., Bandha is caused. But the Nichayabhasya does not possess the true knowledge of the nature of attachment, etc. Therefore, he believes contrarily.
Thank you. So here he is attending to that question of Nishayabhasi, that if I will be meditating on non-self objects, then I am actually inviting or invoking more karmic bondage. So I should not be doing that. So that is what he is attending here, that this perspective is also wrong, and it should be corrected, because if thinking about or meditating about non-self objects was to be causing the bondage, then Kevalis or omniscients, they are seeing and contemplating, or not contemplating, I should say, but they are seeing these objects every moment. And they're seeing the past, present, and future, all three paryayas of modifications of these objects, then they should be also binding karmas, which is not seen. So, the understanding that any contemplation or any seeing and knowing that is happening with vitarag bhav, with an non-attachment, non-judgmental form, that is going to be causing or being the reason for samvar and nirjara, not otherwise. And then he says, okay, that is for the omniscients, but what about the ones who are non-omniscients? They would at least be binding karmas when they are thinking about non-self objects. So he answers, that is also not true. Because in the state of Shukla Dhyan, the scriptures also suggest that munis who are attempting on the Shukla Dhyan stage and at the top end of the Shukla Dhyan, they are also contemplating on the nature of the reality. They are contemplating on all the six dravyas of this universe, so that they can come to the right conclusion. So, in that case, they should be binding more karmas. Also, the munis who have Avdhi Gyan, or the jivas who have the clairvoyant knowledge and Manaparya Gyan, they also would be binding more karmas, because all they know is all about non-self. So, if your argument is accepted, that means they all should be having their ashra dwar open, which is not seen in reality. Furthermore, somebody who is in fourth gunasthan, but is only thinking about the self, and he is becoming happy just like himself, that he is becoming happy that he is Samyak Drashti Jiv, he is on the path of moksha, he is already like Siddha Bhagwan, then he is actually inviting Ashrava and Bandha, and corresponding shedding of his karmas is very minimal. Likewise, somebody who is on fifth gunasthan or in the sixth gunasthan, even though he is engaged into the sensual activities, but inside the meditation is happening of them being non-self, him being self, which is what we talk all about swapargyata. So in that case, his ashravas are minimal and his nirjara is of higher nature. So the Bandha or ashrav does not happen because of contemplating on self or non-self. It happens because of the quotient of raga, dvesh, moha involved in that contemplation. If the rag, dvesh, moha are of a higher quality, then more bondage will happen. If they are of the lower category or if they are milder, then respectively, the karmic bondage will be minimal. And that is how you shed these karmas. Because this Jeev does not understand this logic, does not know how to apply it, he constantly feels delusional about his state and he exists, he is happy with his delusion as well. सो देन ही सेज, अब वो पूछता है कि ऐसा है तो निर्विकल्प अनुभव दशा में नए प्रमाण निक्षेप आदि के तथा दर्शन ज्ञान आदि के भी विकल्पों का निषेध किया है, सो किस प्रकार है? उत्तर, जो जीव इन्हीं विकल्पों में लगे रहते हैं और अभेद रूप एक आत्मा का अनुभव नहीं करते, उन्हें ऐसा उपदेश दिया है कि यह सर्व विकल्प वस्तु का निश्चय करने में कारण है। वस्तु का निश्चय होने पर इनका प्रयोजन कुछ नहीं रहता। इसीलिए इन विकल्पों को भी छोड़कर अभेद रूप एक आत्मा का अनुभव करना इनके विचार रूप विकल्पों में ही फंसा रहना योग्य नहीं है, तथा वस्तु का निश्चय होने के पश्चात ऐसा नहीं है कि सामान्य रूप स्वद्रव्य ही का चिंतवन रहा करे। स्वद्रव्य का तथा परद्रव्य का सामान्य रूप और विशेष रूप जानना होता है, परंतु वीतरागता सहित होता है, उसी का नाम निर्विकल्प दशा है। आप महेंद्र सर।
Yeah. Now he asks, if it is so, then how is it that the Nirvikalpa Anubhava Dasha, rambleless state of self-realization, the thoughts, vikalpas, relating to Naya Pramana Nikshepas, etc., and even of perception of knowledge, etc., are forbidden? In answer he gives, the jivas are engrossed in these thoughts only and do not realize the one indivisible self-soul. They are advised that all these thoughts are instrumental in true ascendment of substances. But after such ascertainment, these thoughts have no role to play. Hence, by giving up these vikalpas also, one should engross himself in realization of one indivisible self-soul. It is not desirable to remain engrossed in these thoughts only. Further, after ascertainment of the true nature of the substances, it is not possible to remain engrossed in the contemplation of self-soul in a general way. Knowledge of self-soul and other objects persist in both general and specific forms, but with the feeling of passionlessness. The same is called Nirvikalpa Dasha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I suppose this is an experience we all go through as well when we were studying the Nay Praman, Agam ke Nay, and Adhyatma ke Nay, all that. So what the question that this person asks is that you are saying that, that it is written in the Agamas that the Nirvikalpa state, which is where there is no kind of rambling in the mind or in the contemplation, that state, even the nay, praman, nikshep, all of those are not to be contemplated upon, are not to be engaged upon. So how is that possible? So Acharya ji says that the one who is engaged in such vikalpas or such rambles, is this right or that is right? Is that true or that is true? Or this is true? Or should I believe this or should I believe that? In those kind of states, the direction is to contemplate on the Atma who is of no further divisions. So undivided Atma or soul should be directed to be experienced. Now, if you are not able to come to that conclusion, that is when you have to understand this Nay, Praman, Nikshep, all of that. But once you have identified what your subject is and you're able to meditate on that subject, then the other things are of no use to you. So one should not be engaging with that for longer period of time once the decision of the reality has been made. And he says, even though when you have finally concluded what the reality is, you will still come to know about the specifics as well as the general nature of self and non-self objects. So if you attend to them with vitarag bhav, then you are in the nirvikalpa state. So a very typical example came to my mind. These days we have a term called do it yourself. And I'm not sure how much it is popular in India, but in Western countries, even if you want to build a cupboard or you want to build any furniture, you get the parts and you just go home and build with them. So when you get those parts, they also give us the tools to construct those parts, the design, and whatever needs to be done with that. Once that furniture or whatever thing was to be done is done, those tools are of no use. So that time, those tools have to be discarded. But if somebody develops an attachment for those tools, then what will happen is, even though the target has been accomplished and he is able to utilize that object, his focus is on the tools and he thinks about the tools all the time. In doing so, he is not able to enjoy the product that he was really after. So he says that all these tools of Praman, Nay, Nikshep, all of them are of use until the final decision is not made. Until then, they are not the reason why you are rambling. They are only assisting you to organize that rambling in the right direction so you come to the right conclusion. Once that conclusion has been made, you have realized the object of reality, the object of meditation, then you should not bring those tools into your focus, because they can also be reason for you slipping off that experience. So if you come to know about the specifics of self and non-self, and you don't react to it, you're not having any kind of attachment or any kind of rag or dvesh for that understanding, then you are already in a nirvikalpa state. So you're not feeling like you want to know more, or you want to disengage from your experience and try and understand what that would be meaning. So they may come into your knowledge, they may come into your awareness, but your attraction, you're not diverting your attention to those ones. So that is what they're trying to say here. Then he says, वहां वह पूछता है, यहाँ तो बहुत विकल्प हुए, निर्विकल्प संज्ञा कैसे संभव है? उत्तर, निर्विचार होने का नाम निर्विकल्प नहीं है, क्योंकि छद्मस्त के जानना विचार सहित है। उसका अभाव मानने से ज्ञान का अभाव होगा, और तब जड़पना हुआ सो आत्मा के होता नहीं है, इसीलिए विचार तो रहता है। तथा यह कहे कि एक सामान्य का ही विचार रहता है, विशेष का नहीं, तो सामान्य का विचार तो बहुत काल रहता नहीं है। वह विशेष की अपेक्षा बिना सामान्य का स्वरूप भाषित नहीं होता। तथा यह कहे कि अपना ही विचार रहता है, पर का नहीं, तो पर में पर बुद्धि हुए बिना अपने में निज बुद्धि कैसे आए? So that would be the concluding part of page 210 in this book. So if we can just attend that.
There he asked, all this means generation of various thoughts. How can this be called nirvikalpa state of upayoga? By answer, the thoughtlessness is not called the nirvikalpa state of mind, because all knowing of non-omniscience is found with thought. Believing nirvikalpa dasha to be devoid of thoughts would mean absence of knowledge itself. That is to say, the state of senselessness, which is not possible in the case of soul. Therefore, thoughts always exist. One may say here that in such a state, the concentration of thoughts is only on the indivisible self-soul and on its specialities. But the concentration of thought on the indivisible soul cannot continue for a long time, and without the knowledge of its specialities, the real nature of indivisible soul cannot be realized. And if he says that in the nirvikalpa state, the thought of self-soul only continues and not of other non-self objects, then how can the I-ness feeling be evolved in the self-soul without developing non-self feeling of a non-self substance? I think the last paragraph is additional, I read. Yeah. Okay.
So what he is trying to say here is that he is considering being nirvikalpa as being nirvichar, which means that thoughtlessness is what is ramble-free state. So it is a very common mistake we all tend to follow. We say we are trying to become thoughtless when we're trying to meditate. And this is what he is also clearing here, is that thoughtlessness is only a possibility in ajiv. So if you become thoughtless, which means become your ajiv. So in a jiva, in a living being, thoughtlessness is not a possibility until the body is existing, or the jiva is existing in the body. So he says that now you're saying that in the vitarag state as well, there would be a awareness or contemplation on the specifics as well as generalized features of the self and non-self items. That means there are so many combinations and so many probabilities and so many permutations will be happening, and those permutations will be coming in your thoughts. So how would that nirvikalp state then be possible? So he says, thoughtlessness is not nirvikalp dasha, or the other way around. Nirvikalp dasha doesn't mean thoughtlessness, because for a chadmasta who hasn't gone to the state of keval gyan, the thought will always be the knowledge will always be based on the thoughts. So it is supported by the thoughts. And if we say that knowledge without thoughts is a possibility, then you are saying that that would be a concept for a non-living object. But soul is a living object, so that is not possible here. So thought will exist in the Chadmasta Jiva. And then he says that if you think that in this Vitarag state of Nirvikalp Dasha, the only experience of contemplation happening is of that pure soul, who is not being looked from is the Dravya Gun Paryaya point of view, is not looked upon as his past, present, and future probabilities or states of existence, but are not looked at upon as his Gyata Drashta Bhav, but is just looked upon as a Jeev, as Atma. Then that becomes the Samanya feature of their Atma. So he says that the meditation and contemplation is only focusing around that commonality, then and not of the specifics. Then he says that if that was the case, that contemplation will not last for long. That will not be continuing or helping the seeker to progress any further. So without knowing the specifics, the common feature cannot be understood and experienced. So the specifics are also necessary. And then he says that the contemplation is of the self, but not the non-self. So he responds, he says, if you don't know the non-self, how are you going to confirm the self? So both of them are contrary understanding. So if you don't understand one, you are not able to understand the other one. And if you don't understand the other one, you cannot make a judgment for the previous one. So that finishes page 210. Today evening we will try and do the
Yes.
211 and 12. So
Okay.
then when next week we will go on to Vyavarabhasi.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Any questions from anyone so far? I just hope we had a probably a bit of understanding of what is going on.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, enjoyed.
Oh, good. Any
Yes, sir,
questions?
it was good.
Yeah. So, earlier I was also thinking about, meditation means, without thoughts. And he has clarified this again in this.
He's
Ma'am
done a
also
good job.
keep telling that, that if you don't have thoughts, you become like a Pudgal. Pudgals don't have thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So I feel meditation is like just one thought. Think of, if you're thinking of Bhagwan or you're having one, just concentrate not about the world or nothing should come. If it comes, it has to come and go. But
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about anything, or you just concentrate on one object or Bhagwan, or that's what I understand. Many start with concentration on the breathing. So you're not thinking of anything of the world, but on your breathing.
Put it this way, that if you are in a muddled water, right, and you want to see your face, what do? You can't steady the water there. So you'll have to wait for that water to steady itself and the mud settles down. That's only when you are able to see your face in that. So this is exactly what is happening in our mind. Because of the constant engagement with external atmosphere, it is constantly responding to those external activities. And when you are trying to bring it to the state of what you call as a state of stationary mind, that will need it to slowly come down to that state. And the only way that you can do it is to reduce its focus from external activities to that internal activity. So I'll give you my example. When I went for the Vipassana class, I was going the first time. I didn't even know what I was experiencing. And the first session, the teacher told us that all you need to do is just experience your sensations. You don't even have to do anything else. Just close your eyes and experience a sensation. So I went and saw the teacher in the lunch break and I said, I can't feel any sensation in me. And he said, you must be joking. I said, no, I don't feel I sense anything. He said, this is what we mean racing mind. Because when I tell you, you want to feel your senses, you have actually commanded your mind that wherever there is a sense happening, you need to tell me that I have sensed that. You need to make me realize that sense. But that is what we don't want you to do. You let us, he said, your cloth, like your shirt touching your skin, is a sensation. But you didn't consider it as a sensation because you're looking for something more relevant, something more reliable, something more conceivable. But sensation does not have to be conceivable. Sensation is happening. What we're trying to tell you is now become aware of that sensation. So for that awareness, you want to let your mind become still. And the stillness is only going to happen when you try to disengage it from outside and bring it to the inside. And so breathing is one portion or one activity which can be focused upon to bring that stillness to the level of meditation. So even when we say from thought perspective, thoughtlessness is never going to be the nature of mind until you go beyond the state of Shariri state. So, but those thoughts also should not be bothering me, or they should not be in my way of being aware. That is what the stillness of mind is about. So it's not even like I'll tell you now when I go and sit for my meditation, after about a minute or two, I start feeling jittery in my sensations go very strong because I can feel, I know where I'm going wrong. I know what I'm doing. As soon as one thought comes, I can see it is taking me or racing me away from that stillness of mind. So what is happening, I just have to be aware of. So whether we are doing bhakti of Bhagwan or whether we are chanting any mantra or whether we are reading the scripture, if the mind is not still, then the thoughts are going to take us out of our own existence and our own understanding and our own experience. And that is what will then bring off all those vikalpas. Did I offer this? Did I not offer this? Did I use the right sequence? Did I utter this word correctly? Did I make a mistake in uttering it? Did I do something as an ashatna? All those things will come into as my vikalpa. But if my mind is steady and still, that I am just focused on what is happening within me, what is my experience happening, and everything outside will just flow by how it should be. So I'm not forcing my mind and thoughts to stay focused on that. Initially, yes, that is why the process has to start by narrowing down the thought process happening in my brain.
No, but Saurabhji, don't you express, don't you feel thoughtlessness while doing vipassana because you are focusing on the sensations or the breath?
I think that also is happening at a thought level at the moment. Like I am
Okay.
thinking that I am sensing it, right? Because as we understood from Kramabaddha Paryay, that before you realize a Paryay, it has already become your past. Until
Yes.
you could go to that stage of realization where in Keval Gyan you can see that Paryay. But we are Chadmasta, so we can't see that Paryay at the moment the Paryay is happening. We only realize that sensation past it's happening. So that also is a thought, if I put it this way. So even that is designed so that I can consider it as a thought and say that I am the one who is sensing it. So now I have to look at the one who is sensing it. And when I look at the one or experience the one who is sensing it, then those sensations will also die down. So they will be happening externally, but in my realization, they are non-existent. So that is what their next step of meditation is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saurabhji,
Yes.
very, very nice presentation, nice lecture today. Very depth,
Thank you.
very deep and very abstract, though, very difficult for me to understand.
Hmm.
But I think, forgetting the name, but there's भाई साहब ने जो पूछा आपको
Yeah.
meditation
Parasi.
meditation of soul. That was a very good question,
Absolutely.
and you
Absolutely.
explained it very thoroughly. But I missed some links there. But then you said that you joined through after joining this Parmagam
Vipassana.
classes.
Yeah.
You realize why you should follow Atma or go in search of Atma, right? That was also a good point.
Yeah. That's my story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Jai
So,
Jain.
Yes,
Yeah,
President,
go ahead.
Thank you,
You
Jay.
had a question?
Thank
You had a question?
Oh, did we start a little early today?
I want to ask,
Yeah, go ahead.
Jinendra,
is
and I have to leave.
a
Thank you.
Nischay Abhasi aware that he's a Nischay Abhasi?
No, that's the problem. He is not. You know,
He's
I'll tell you something.
no,
Uh,
then why would he call himself a Abhasi? This is what
he is not
we
calling himself Abhasi. He is not
Hmm.
calling himself Abhasi. Right.
Acha.
I'll tell you one example. Say go back into time when one of your children um, came back from school and they had a terrible problem in the school, right? And they must have picked up a fight and they came home and they were in all sorts of shatters. Did they realize that they actually had fought with someone? Or did they realize that they had done something that was not normally expected from a child of that age? You have to tell them, isn't it? This was not right, this was not right. But if they were listening to you, they were believing in what you said, then they would not be in that delusion. They
This
did
is
not
just
listen.
a description of a Abhasi.
That is the abhas. So he listens to someone and someone tells him that you are Shuddha Atma. So he believes that he's a Shuddha Atma. So now he says, I'm Shuddha Atma, I don't have to do anything. So that is the abhas. He has not worked for it. He has not realized it. At knowledge level, he understands. But at like information level, he understands. But at experiential level, he doesn't understand it. So he doesn't know he is a Nishchaya Abhasi. But I am a Nishchaya Abhasi many a times in my life. So the Acharya ji is attending to my problem. Because I want to go on the path of moksha, if these mistakes are not corrected, then they will surface somewhere and they will block my path. So from my perspective, I will say that there are a lot of things in there that has been said which tell me that I am Nishchayabhasi number of times, many a times in my day-to-day activity, in my belief system, in my faith. I don't acknowledge them and I believe that what I know is all correct and true. So I am actually creating a hurdle for myself to go further.
From the Vyavahar point, he's not a Abhasi.
Whichever point you look at it, if he's following what he's supposed to be, like I should know that I'm Shuddha Atma because Bhagavan says that in the Ch Dravyas or the six Dravyas, I am the Jeev Dravya. So from Bhagavan's point of view, I am a Dravya. But Bhagavan also said to me that in the current context, you are still not liberated. You still are bonded with karmas. So what you need to understand is that you are a Shuddha Jeev, Shuddha Atma. So from that perspective, you should be stronger in your resolution to go ahead. You should not take it as a compliment and just stop there. Right. So from that perspective, he is Nishchayabhasi. So as long as he understands that this is my mistake, then he will be able to correct it. Then he doesn't stay Nishchayabhasi. So there are two aspects, right? There is a Nishchaya aspect and there is a Vyavahar aspect. So the Nishchaya aspect is talking about the real state of your existence. And the Vyavahar point is saying that from current perspective, your existence also involves this. So this is only to help you to drive to your existence and the true nature. That is why we use Vyavahar. But once that decision is made and the understanding is strongly accepted and experienced, then you don't need the Vyavahar. So they're talking about Nishchay Abhasi first and then Vyavahar Abhasi because the problem is that we all tend to start from being Nishchay Abhasi before we go into the Vyavahar Abhas as such. So that is the sequence I understood of it. So we'll just do the Stuti.
Yeah.
जो वाणी के ज्ञान में सूझे लोकालोक सोवाणी मस्तक नमो सदा देत हो धोक. Jai Jinan.
Jai Jinendra. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you. See you in
Thank
the
you, sir. Yeah, see you in the evening.
Thank you, Mahendra and Sue.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.